The book I shouldn't have opened. The most terrifying thing that has ever happened to me started with an old book I found in my new apartment. If I had ignored it, none of this would have happened, and I probably wouldn't still be checking over my shoulder every night. This happened in October of 2024. I had just moved into a small apartment in a quiet town. While unpacking boxes, I noticed something strange in the back of my bedroom closet. There was a loose wooden panel hidden behind some shelves. Out of curiosity, I pulled it away. Behind it was a small space in the wall. Inside was a thick black book covered in dust. There was no title, no author's name, nothing. When I opened it, I realized it wasn't a normal book. Every page contained handwritten entries, different dates, different names, different people describing strange experiences. The first few stories sounded fake, but one thing caught my attention. Every entry ended with the same sentence: "If you see him, do not look twice." I laughed it off. That night, while brushing my teeth, I looked out the bathroom window. Across the street, under a flickering streetlight, stood a tall man wearing dark clothes. He wasn't moving. I looked away for a second. Then I remembered the sentence from the book. For some reason, I felt nervous. When I looked back outside, the man was gone. I told myself someone had simply walked away. The next evening, I opened the book again. The last page was blank. At least I thought it was. As I turned it toward the light, I noticed fresh handwriting appearing on the paper. My heart stopped. The page described everything I had done that day: what I ate, where I went, even the conversation I had with my coworker. The final line wasn't finished. It simply said, "Tonight, he will be closer." I slammed the book shut. Around midnight, I heard footsteps outside my apartment door. Slow, heavy, back and forth, back and forth. I looked through the peephole. A tall man stood in the hallway, completely motionless, just staring at my door. I stepped back in panic. A few seconds later, I looked again. The hallway was empty. The next morning, I decided to throw the book away. I drove to a dumpster several miles from town and left it there. That night, I returned home feeling relieved, but when I entered my apartment, something was sitting on my kitchen table. The black book, waiting for me. My hands started shaking. Slowly, I opened it. A new page had appeared. Only one sentence was written on it. "You looked twice." At that exact moment, I heard a knock behind me. Not on the apartment door, on the bedroom door inside my apartment. I lived alone. I ran outside and called the police. They searched every room. Nobody was there. The officers assumed I was stressed and eventually left. Before going to bed, I checked the book one last time. There was one final entry. It had today's date, and underneath it were 6 words. "He is no longer outside." I burned the book the next morning. At least I tried to. The pages wouldn't catch fire. 3 days later, the book disappeared on its own. I never saw it again. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I find muddy footprints on the floor beside my bed. Only one set, as if someone stood there for hours watching me sleep.